The Women's World Cup is underway in Australia and New Zealand. Tasman neighbors coming together, which they tend to do on big competitions. And in war, they fought together as the Anzacs. Little transparency here. As a child, our family moved to Australia from when I was 5 years old till 12. Incredible place for your formative years. So I know a few things about Australia. I visited New Zealand a couple times. I still pull for Australia in rugby and cricket. It's not been going great in the Ashes. Not been going great right now. So that's beside the point. But I also want to get in on the women's soccer game. I don't really talk about it a lot. I don't watch it as much, so I don't want to come out here and give you expert opinion when there are other voices that you should listen to. But I know how this all works, and I'm going to look at some big picture items about the Women's World Cup that really matter more than anything else, and I'll shoot from the hip. I'm not afraid to give you my opinions as it counts. And I think as all of us will grow into this tournament, it's easy to watch more women's sports with the NWSL, with these huge games coming in Europe with the Champions League. And there's so much more money invested in it that the women's game is on very good ground. But they need to deliver here a little bit. And I'm recording this on a Friday night before the USA game. So we'll circle back about that. They'll open their World Cup. But on a small sample size, we're seeing this tournament already hitting its marks in several categories, which we will discuss. I'll give you the big picture stories and let you know what to look for and whether these expectations can be met. Here on the Soccer OG, check out the Soccer OG podcast. I was at the MLS All-Star Game in Washington, D.C. I was everywhere, talked to everyone. Listen to the podcast where all podcasts are available to get some flavor about where MLS is heading. Just like the women's game, soccer in this country is going through the roof. Messi has arrived. I'll give you my benediction on Messi. That's the wrong choice of words because he's not dying. But I'll give you my thoughts on it. And I'm telling you, there's here on the Soccer OG, you'll hear it. You'll hear it here first before you hear it elsewhere. It's just where it is, man. I'm so locked in and dialed in on this sport from covering it so long. That's why I'm the Soccer OG. Like and subscribe us here. Thanks for everyone who has checked us out. So the Women's World Cup, the number one topic, because it's never happened before, and we're going to compare it a lot to the men's game, because guess what? The women want to be compared to the men's game. They should be compared to the men's game. They should target the men's game so that there's more money and more interest and more attention given to the women's game. Because, part of the story coming in was they struggled to find advertisers. And that's not America's fault. The U.S. team is doing their part, and they can find their partners here. Globally, it's not there. And it won't be, I don't think it'll ever catch the men's game, but you never know. Because you're getting the very best athletes here playing soccer. And what's happening now will boost things in the future. But the women's tournament is not there yet. But they're going for it, and you like to see it. So what can be met? We start with the U.S. team, and really the best thing that could happen in this competition is the U.S. not winning it. That would be a proof of concept that the world is catching up. The U.S. is injury-riddled. They are down. There is a change in... there's a legacy change, right? There's a generational change. And that's really important. And because of the injuries, and because of... having to replace some players by necessity, I think USA have put themselves in a really good position to win this because they're serving their youth. Now, I wish Mallory Swanson was here. I wish Christian Press and Catarina Macario were here because they are part of this new generation. Certainly two of the three. Kristen Press still with a lot left in her game. I wish Rose Lavelle was 100%, but they are not. And the U.S. is leaning into this young group of players well in advance of the time they should. And that will serve them well in 2027 when hopefully the U.S. hosts the World Cup and beyond. Because we're seeing teenagers and we're seeing players that are 21, 22 thrust into starting roles. So if there's one team in this tournament that can turn to their youth with success, it's the U.S. We're so far ahead. We're so far ahead of the rest of the world in that category. And the fact that they can move into this generation now, I think can help them in the present and without question will help them in the future. Naomi Girma is going to be a featured player. She is 22. Emily Fox as a fullback is 25. Sophia Smith, her career is just getting started. She might be the golden boot here, as she will be alongside Alex Morgan. Alex Morgan, they still have that connection to the past with Julie Ertz and Alex Morgan and Lindsey Horan and the Mewises. But, you know, this generation is going to be thrust in there, and competition is going to be served. They're not going to be dominant, but I think they may not have to be. And I'll get to that here in a moment. But I am excited. I mean, Trinity Rodman's going to be thrust into a position. I don't know if she's quite ready for it, but we're going to find out really quick. And there is a great core group. Alana Cook is just 26. Lynn Williams is going to be in here. I really like her game. Alyssa Thompson, she's getting a lot of the press. She's just 18. I don't think she'll play a lot. But man, way to get her in the system now. This is a rock star you have on your hands. She's hitting her spots on the club level. She will eventually here on the national team level. So the U.S., although they have the injuries, which maybe take them a tick down. I can't go on without mentioning Megan Rapinoe, who said this will be your last competition. I mean, Megan Rapinoe probably shouldn't be at this World Cup. But Megan Rapinoe is going to come off the bench, and Megan Rapinoe can do things that very few players can. She is one of the most technically gifted players, completely self-made. Whether you agree with her or not, you have to respect that this is a woman who came out of really nowhere. She didn't get all the fanfare of some of these other big stars that we were alerted to. She kind of came through the back door, and all of a sudden she's on that national team, and she's becoming a key force, and she is everywhere. She marketed herself. She goes above and beyond to speak for her causes, and she gets attention to them, and she gets results for that. I don't always agree with what she says, but I respect the heck out of her. And off the field, certainly I do. On the field, she could still come in and provide a free kick of some kind. It's such a wonderful luxury to have. No other country has that. That's why USA is one of my favorites, one of two favorites to win this competition. I didn't say that at the beginning. The other reason I think they have a great chance is all those top-tier teams, granted these are friendlies and the like, are really laboring at the wrong time. There are issues with all of them. England sputtered into this competition. The Euros team ages ago. Are they really ready to be World Cup champs? I don't know. Germany lost to Zambia, struggled with, I think, the Philippines. They were the number one team in the world. They don't look like it. Sweden, not as much, but can they get over the hump? Canada won the Olympics. That feels more like a swan song than a statement for the future, right? Christine Sinclair, they didn't look so good in their game against Nigeria. They got a result, but they're not going to win it. I mean, some of the best players look, the U.S. doesn't have this problem. You can't. One thing about the women's tournament that you've got to serve the youth. That's what the men's tournament does. You funnel in these young players. That's why Argentina won the World Cup, because they turned to young players to circle around Messi. It's got to be a good balance of young and old. But there's too many times in the women's game where people are playing their fourth or fifth or sixth World Cup. Can't have that. Cannot have players playing 5 World Cups. That tells you that the machine is not working. You've got to be thrust out after 3 World Cups, 4 at the most if you were a special player. There's too many players making 4 World Cups. That shouldn't happen. It's not happening with the U.S. Canada, it is. And I would say that that's going to push them behind. And granted, their federation are having big issues as well. Spain had a big coaching scandal. They had their first game. They had 45 shots. They're my other pick to win it. I really like the Spanish team. I fell in love with them the last couple years. I'm going to stick with it. Alexia Putellas, who is my favorite professional player. I love watching her play. She is coming back from injury. She's getting there. They have Aitana Bonmati, who is a top 10 player in the world. Aided by the emergence of Barcelona and the Spanish League and the European soccer landscape, Spain have come in, they've arrived, and they play beautiful football. I like them in their group. I'm going to pick Spain or the United States. That's what I have. I know I'm splitting it, but I'm not picking Germany. I'm not picking England. The Netherlands, who reached the final, I'm not picking them. Not picking the Danes. The Swedes, not the Danes. I think I said Denmark before. I meant Sweden. I don't know. Now, the other big story here is they're expanding to a 32-team field. Is the women's game ready for that? The men's tournament is expanding to 48, and while not everyone's on board with it, you're still going to have a good competition. The women's tournament was a 16-team tournament not that long ago, and you were worried if it could be a 24-team tournament. 4 years ago, we saw the United States win a game, 13-0. That can't happen. The top and the bottom of the tournament of these 32 teams, there cannot be a gap, right? Or a big gap. There can be a gap, but there can't be these big gaps. You got to have 6 or 7 teams that can win it. You got to have a really good middle class, and your bottom teams have to be World Cup quality. Early returns are that they're hitting that. The Philippines played well. New Zealand beat Norway. Norway, which has Ada Hegerberg and some other great players, they beat them. That's a great sign that the middle and the bottom is moving up. We're expecting good things from Zambia. This is critical. I mean, if the U.S. hadn't won 2 World Cups, this would be the biggest factor of this World Cup. I like what I've seen early on. We'll see what happens with USA and Vietnam, but Vietnam played pretty well in some games getting up to the World Cup, so I'd be shocked if they lose by 4 goals or more. I think it'll be more competitive than that. I wouldn't be shocked. I would be shocked if it was 5 or 6. I think they won't lose by more than 4 goals. So you have the fields, because once it is evident that this is a global sensation, it's not just big in the United States and Norway, it's big in Africa, it's big in Europe, it's big in South America. South America has an 18-year-old Colombian player, Linda, I forgot her first name, Caicedo. That is another sign that it is growing globally. There are better competitions, there's more money in it for the women's game, and people are going to watch, right? That'll be the third point. But we've got to see that. If you are jumping to a 32-team tournament, you can't have teams just there to fill out the numbers. And so far, it's looking good for the women's competition. We can't sit through a group stage knowing full well how this tournament's going to turn out. We need the unexpected. And I think we're going to get a couple of those results. But that is one of the big stories. That it could be the biggest story, because that means so much moving forward for the women's game, in the sense that you will find TV partners. You will find better players on the TV side, and you will develop new fans. This World Cup has all the ingredients to do it. And that's why I say maybe the best thing is for the U.S. not to win it, and probably for the U.S. not to make a final. If we turn around in a month here and the final is, say, Germany versus Brazil or Australia versus Spain, we're in a good spot. But you got to prove it that you can beat this. You can beat this U.S. team. The final story is, how will the World Cup look from the Southern Hemisphere? Australia and New Zealand, early on, sold out games. Australia and New Zealand both win their games, so you'll have those teams and the enthusiasm that follows them continue, probably through the knockout stages. I think both really have a shot right now, as New Zealand beat the team that they were probably competing for a spot in the knockout stages. How will it be viewed around the world? We have to wake up early for some games, but the U.S. game is at 7 o'clock in the West Coast, 10 o'clock. So as long as you get a lot of those games, and we will, people will be able to tune in at a decent hour, right? Friday night, 10 o'clock, perfect. So they're going to get TV numbers. The buildup was a little slow. I was a little surprised I didn't see more about the Women's World Cup, because I watch soccer pretty much all day, every day. I didn't feel like the World Cup was upon us, and then it started, and then I was like, okay, here we are. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to be a hit, because it will build momentum. They'll find compelling stories, and we'll see, because the U.S. support wants to see their country be a juggernaut, right? People tune into the U.S. Women because they want to see them blow the doors off of people. Will they stick around if that doesn't happen? I think they will. I think the women's game will develop new fans, and there will be players who will become household names based on how this competition goes. So the way I'm describing it, it's going to be fantastic here in Australia and New Zealand. I'm already more excited than I was a week ago or 2 weeks ago. And all those things, the U.S. doing well, I think they're in good shape. I'm excited about the young players. Whether it's going to be a balanced field, early returns it is. And how will it be received in Australia and New Zealand? So far, excellent. Australia and New Zealand are great sporting nations. Australia, what's there, 20 million Australians? And they have won so many team competitions in a variety of sports, world sports like rugby and cricket. And they have their own sport in Australian rules football. New Zealand's a country of what, 6 million, 7 million? They've won Rugby World Cups. They've won America's Cups. So that's an incredible sport legacy. Everyone plays sports in some way, shape, or form in those two countries. It's a great host, and I'm glad they're getting this opportunity. Come on, Aussie. The Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast, where all podcasts are available. There's a new one from the MLS All-Star Game waiting for you right now. Click it, like it, subscribe it. Check out the library of videos I have here on YouTube under my name, Max Bretos. We'll be back. So much soccer going on.